When I received a call from my boyfriend, Brian, I was completely taken aback. His voice sounded very excited.
Baby, did you see that video about canceling the high bride price?
I saw it. What's up?
I thought Brian was calling to vent about the issue, but to my surprise, he burst into laughter.
Baby, now that there's no high bride price, I can marry you. Haven't you always wanted to marry me? Trust me, without the bride price, I can save up money. It'll be just the two of us, and I'll definitely treat you well in the future.
Brian's words left me speechless. From the time I agreed to date Brian until now, it had only been 3 months. When did it get to the point of discussing marriage?
Actually, I think the bride price is something that can be negotiated, right? Reporting it directly seems a bit disrespectful to the girl's family.
I didn't expect the voice on the other end to turn sinister instantly.
Sophia, don't you want to marry me? I knew it. Do you think I'm poor? I even wrote a letter to the county head to report the high bride price just to marry you, and now you're rejecting me? What do you take me for?
His words sent chills down my spine, and my mind went blank. Brian's phrase "wrote a letter to the county head" echoed in my ears. So, I was caught up in this mess. Before I could figure out what was happening, Brian's voice came through the phone again.
Is this how you treat me? You're just a gold digger. I really misjudged you. Just wait, I won't let you off.
His voice was filled with so much anger that it made me shiver, and I instinctively shrunk my arms. When I returned to my senses, the call had already ended. It was past 8 in the evening, and my roommates were all in the dorm. Seeing my odd behavior, they gathered around me.
Sophia, what's wrong? You were fine just now. Why did you suddenly change after taking a call?
I'm fine, just some family issues. You guys should rest.
I said and climbed into bed. Lying there, scrolling through my phone, I couldn't shake off the cold feeling inside. Brian's words kept replaying in my mind. I just wanted to break up with Brian as soon as possible. With his extreme personality, who knows what he might do in the future? After much thought, I sent a breakup text to Brian and deleted all his contact information. Finally, the world seemed a bit quieter. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, my roommate pulled me to the balcony, pointing to a figure downstairs.
Did you two have a fight? Brian has been waiting for you downstairs since early morning. When I went to get breakfast, he asked me to tell you that he had a bit too much to drink yesterday and wasn't in his right mind. He wants to see you. Brian treats you so well. We all see it. There's no need to break up over a small issue. You should talk it out.
With that, my roommate went back inside, leaving me alone on the balcony. Brian looked up and met my gaze. At that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. I decided to grab my jacket and go out. Maybe I should clarify things with Brian to prevent him from bothering my friends. As soon as Brian saw me, he knelt down and grabbed my hand, trying to slap himself with it. I couldn't dodge in time and was pulled forward, almost falling.
Sophia, I was wrong. How could I be such a jerk and say those things to you? I was really drunk yesterday and don't remember anything. Please don't break up with me. I really like you. I can't live without you.
Brian hugged my legs, his head buried in them, trembling. I tried to pull him up but couldn't.
Get up first, and then we'll talk. What are you doing?
Seeing more and more people gathering, I was getting anxious. Brian lowered his voice and said,
Get back together with me, Sophia. I can forgive you for what you did yesterday. It won't look good if this continues.
With 2 loud slaps, my hand hurt. By now, people had started to gather, taking videos with their phones. I had to soften my tone.
Brian, get up. Let's talk this out. What are you doing?
Brian stubbornly stayed on his knees, his eyes red.
Sophia, I was wrong. How could I be such a jerk and say those things to you? I was really drunk yesterday and don't remember anything. Please don't break up with me. I really like you. I can't live without you.
Brian hugged my legs, his head buried in them, trembling. I tried to pull him up but couldn't.
Get up first, and then we'll talk.
Seeing more and more people gathering, I was getting anxious. Brian lowered his voice.
Get back together with me, Sophia. I can forgive you for what you did yesterday. It won't look good if this continues.
With 2 loud slaps, my hand hurt. By now, people had started to gather, taking videos with their phones. I had to soften my tone.
Brian, get up. Let's talk this out. What are you doing?
Brian stubbornly stayed on his knees, his eyes red.
Sophia, I was wrong. How could I be such a jerk and say those things to you? I was really drunk yesterday and don't remember anything. Please don't break up with me. I really like you. I can't live without you.
Brian hugged my legs, his head buried in them, trembling. I tried to pull him up but couldn't.
Get up first, and then we'll talk.
Seeing more and more people gathering, I was getting anxious.
Get back together with me, Sophia. I can overlook what you did yesterday. It won't look good if this continues.
Narrator, tone, serious in Brian's narrative, I was labeled as a gold digger who deceived his feelings, looked down on the poor, and even traded my body for material gains. The post included photos of me being called to the office and images of our class teacher looking distressed. It was clear who had taken these pictures. At the end of the post, Brian included my contact information and personal details, claiming it was so friends could talk some sense into me. I suppressed my anger and sent the evidence I had to the campus forum. However, there was no response. Brian's post remained pinned at the top, gaining more and more attention. My phone was flooded with harassing messages. No matter how many times I messaged the campus forum, there was no reply. Eventually, when I tried to send another message, I received a red exclamation mark with a note saying, "You are not friends with this user. Please add them first."
Sophia, tone, angry so, I had been blocked? It felt like everything was siding with Brian, pushing me into a corner. Since that was the case, I had to find my own way out. Women should never back down when falsely accused.
Without hesitation, I dialed the emergency number. Half an hour later, a police car arrived at the school, causing quite a stir. This time, the counselor didn't call me but came directly to our dorm. Her wrinkled face was flushed red with anger as she banged on our door. When I went to open it, she almost pushed me over. Behind her were 2 kind-looking female officers. One of them smiled gently at me.
Female officer, tone, friendly, did you call the police?
Counselor, tone, shouting, didn't you hear her talking to you? Sophia, how much more disgrace do you want to bring to the school? What are you thinking? Calling the police?
The officer frowned, clearly displeased with the counselor's behavior. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel a bit relieved. At least they weren't on the same side. I took out my phone and showed the evidence I had collected.
Sophia, tone, serious, I want to report defamation and the counselor's negligence, which has seriously affected my personal safety.
Hearing this, the counselor's face turned ashen. She squeezed past the officer, blocking my view.
Counselor, tone, angry Sophia, don't make baseless accusations. Do you still want your diploma? Officers, don't believe what this child is saying. She has a bad reputation at school and probably just had a minor conflict with her classmates. I'll talk to her. You can go back now.
Sophia, tone, determined this is not a minor conflict. The evidence is right here. You can see for yourselves.
Counselor, tone, shouting Sophia, do you even know the rules? What are you trying to do?
The counselor's spittle almost hit my face. Watching her face turn red with anger, I felt a sense of satisfaction but maintained a frightened and determined look, staring at the officers. As expected, my act elicited sympathy from the officers. One of them stepped in front of me, creating a barrier between me and the counselor.
Female officer, tone, serious. We will investigate the matter, but for now, she needs to come with us to the station.
The counselor tried to say something, but the officer firmly cut her off. Soon, we were on our way to the police station. During the ride, the officer reviewed the documents I had prepared. I could feel her sympathetic gaze on me. She didn't ask many questions, only softly saying as we got out of the car.
Female officer, tone, hopeful we will help you. Don't be afraid, and don't back down.
Sophia, tone, determined don't back down.
I repeated these words in my mind. Women should never live in the shadows. My situation was not unique. The investigation needed to include others involved. Fortunately, the police worked efficiently. Within minutes, a tall, thin boy was brought in, followed by a slow-moving Brian. I recognized the boy as Daniel, Brian's close friend and roommate.
Female officer, tone, serious. This boy is the operator of the campus forum. We brought him in as well.
Seeing Daniel, I immediately understood everything. Narrator, tone, serious. No wonder the campus wall had Brian's statement pinned to the top. No wonder the campus wall ignored my reasonable requests and even blocked me. I thought it was just me being annoying. How did I not realize that the campus wall's operators were in cahoots with Brian? How did I not think it was the campus wall's problem?
Officer, tone, angry. Do you know that your actions constitute spreading false information?
Narrator, tone, serious. The officer who had been speaking up for me sounded increasingly angry.
Daniel, tone, defensive. Why doesn't she dare to admit what she did? I'm just helping those in need to speak out.
Sophia, tone, stubborn. I've already sent you the evidence.
Daniel, tone, agitated. Who knows if you made it up? We all know what kind of person you are. If you really want to explain, go ahead and explain. Why come to me?
Narrator, tone, serious. Listening to Daniel's unreasonable arguments, I gave up on communicating with him.
Sophia, tone, serious. In this situation, I can file a case, right?
Daniel, tone, shouting Sophia, what are you trying to do? You're so despicable. Doing shameless things and trying to drag us down with you?
Officer, tone, serious. Quiet down. This is a police station.
Narrator, tone, serious. Daniel instantly quieted down. The officer nodded at me.
Officer, tone, serious. In this situation, you can indeed file a case, but do you want to try mediation first?
Narrator, tone, serious. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Daniel glared at me viciously, still looking like he wanted to devour me.
Brian, tone, serious. Let's mediate.
Narrator, tone, serious. I knew Brian couldn't sit still any longer. Someone as hypocritical as him cared most about his reputation. This was the outcome I wanted. If I filed a case directly, the the school would likely suppress it to protect its reputation, and it wouldn't solve my problem. Mediation would at least alleviate the current situation. Narrator, tone, serious. We went to the mediation room together, and I stated my demands directly.
Sophia, tone, serious. Daniel must write a handwritten apology, stating that he published false information without proper investigation. He must also pin the PPT I prepared to the top of the campus wall.
Daniel, tone, shouting you're dreaming.
Narrator, tone, serious. Daniel almost lunged at me, but the officer held him back.
Sophia, tone, serious. If you don't agree, I'll file a case.
Narrator, tone, serious. Brian suddenly looked up, staring at me like a venomous snake. After a long pause, he pulled Daniel aside. They whispered something to each other, and finally, Daniel agreed to apologize. Narrator, tone, relieved. I was relieved that Brian hadn't seen the contents of the PPT yet, which was why Daniel agreed to my demands. As for Daniel, he probably hadn't looked at the PPT at all. I wondered what the atmosphere at school would be like after this. Some people criticize not because of any wrongdoing but to satisfy their own desires, following the crowd. Narrator, tone, serious. Back at school, I could feel the curious stares from some people. When I reached the dormitory, my roommate's surprised look told me what had happened. The moment the police car took me away, rumors about me had spread across the campus. It was a testament to the power of the internet. Narrator, tone, serious. I opened my phone, found the campus wall, and re-added it. This time, they quickly accepted. I reminded Daniel that there was a time limit. If I didn't see the apology in 3 days, I would file a case. They quickly replied with a got it and went silent. Narrator, tone, relieved. I had to admit, sometimes the police are effective. The next day, my clarification was pinned to the top of the campus wall. At the same time, I posted the PPT, the so-called evidence, on all my social media platforms. Many of my friends, who were also friends with Brian, saw it. Comments quickly piled up.
Friend 1 tone. Shocked seriously? In this day and age, there's still a guy like this? How long have they been dating, and he's already fantasizing about marriage?
Friend 2, tone, shocked unbelievable. I was just watching the drama unfold, and now it's blown up in my face.
Friend 3, tone. Concerned what's going on? I'm afraid to comment casually now. The reversal is too fast.
Friend 4, tone. Disappointed guys at this place are doomed, ruined by such delusions.
Narrator, tone, relieved. Brian's reputation was completely ruined. People kept messaging me, asking what had happened. I only replied to a few close friends and then tossed my phone aside. I had never felt so relaxed. Narrator, tone, serious. But, of course, someone couldn't stand to see me idle. My phone was bombarded with calls I didn't answer. I didn't expect the counselor to send my roommate to bring me to her office. With 2 loud slaps, my hand hurt. By now, people had started to gather, taking videos with their phones. I had to soften my tone.
Brian, get up. Let's talk this out. What are you doing?
Sophia, I was wrong. How could I be such a jerk and say those things to you? I was really drunk yesterday and don't remember anything. Please don't end things with me. I really like you. I can't live without you.
Brian stubbornly stayed on his knees, his eyes red. He hugged my legs, his head buried in them, trembling. I tried to pull him up but couldn't.
Get up first, and then we'll talk. Seeing more and more people gathering, I was getting anxious.
Get back together with me, Sophia. I can forgive you for what you did yesterday. It won't look good if this continues.
Narrator, tone, serious with 2 loud slaps, my hand hurt. By now, people had started to gather, taking videos with their phones. I had to soften my tone.
Brian, get up. Let's talk this out. What are you doing?
Brian stubbornly stayed on his knees, his eyes red.
Brian, tone, sad Sophia, I was wrong. How could I be such a jerk and say those things to you? I was really drunk yesterday and don't remember anything. Please don't break up with me. I really like you. I can't live without you.
Brian hugged my legs, his head buried in them, trembling. I tried to pull him up but couldn't.
Sophia, tone, anxious, get up first, and then we'll talk.
Seeing more and more people gathering, I was getting anxious.
Brian, tone, whispering, get back together with me, Sophia. I can forgive you for what you did yesterday. It won't look good if this continues.